Hey guys, welcome back to my RC channel. I have a new review for you here today. We're gonna review the Hobbyzone AeroScout, right? No, wait, this is the EOS. This is the Esky EOS. You might be confused, but actually the AeroScout is made by this company called Esky, and that's their logo right there. And this is the EOS model. It is the exact same thing as the AeroScout. It is priced in around $130 for it, plug and play. So that means you have to put your own receiver in here. But I put a little tiny Spectrum receiver there on the side, and it's big enough that it can carry a GoPro on top, which I did. I also put digital FPV on the front as well. That's the Cadex Vista that I'm testing out for Cadex for the full kit version. I'm gonna show you some more footage of that in this review and show you some really cool footage on a crazy windy day. This plane is great for beginners to intermediate because not only can it fly really, really well with the power system on here, it has a pusher prop, you don't break as many props. It's also extremely aerobatic, so a very, very versatile plane, and that's why it's a local favorite around AMA fields around the country right now. Around the US, this is probably one of the most popular planes out there that people are buying. Everyone at the local clubs are buying these and flying them because they're just so easy, and they have huge wheels, they're easy to take off, easy to land. They can flat spin, they can loop, they can barrel roll, they can T-stall, they can do all kinds of aerobatic stuff, or they can just fly straight and teach you how to learn RC airplane flying. So very versatile, I love it. Now let's go ahead now and let's go out and do some flying with this little guy. And let me show you what you can do with $130. Here we go. All right guys, let's go ahead and let's fly the AeroScout Eagle. Let's get it up in the air. I don't know what to call this plane because it has so many names, but I know that it's awesome. If you're just getting into flying RC airplanes, you're one of those guys that they're emailing me asking me which plane should I buy for my first ever RC airplane. I don't have to email you back now because I would tell you to get this one. This is the one to start out with. It has a nice size wing on here. It has a very universal battery. The 3S2200 is pretty much the standard in the RC hobby community for RC airplanes. Most of the guys at these AMA fields, they're flying a lot of these planes, and most of them are considered what we call park flyers. And this is a park flyer style plane. But what's neat about this plane is that, yeah, you can get a good flight time out of it. You can get almost 8 minutes flight time. If you have a little bit of a headwind, you can actually back off the throttle to 0% and you can glide quite a ways with it. It will also slow way down. If you point the nose into the wind, you can hover this plane, which is kind of amazing on a 3S2200 battery. It has a really nice flat spin profile. I've seen people flat spin this plane, inverted flat spins, really cool loops and barrel rolls and T-stalls and all kinds of aerobatics. That is the neat thing about this plane also. If you are a beginner, you have plenty of room to grow. You can fly this plane just like you see me doing in this review, just nice and slow and stable and calm and not super fast. You don't have to fly inverted, of course, at first, but eventually you will learn to, and this plane will fly inverted. Now let me show you what digital FPV looks like. Digital FPV is fun. You can also put the camera in the very front nose of the plane and you won't see any of the plane, which is a really neat option on this canopy that comes on and off with the magnet. But I have it back a little bit on the top because sometimes I like to see the front of the plane. Just gives me a little extra pilot perspective, which I think is kind of cool. If I was going to keep flying in this position, I might actually paint that front part white. It would just look a little bit better, probably a little bit less pixelated in the video. It kind of looks like a porpoise or a whale flying across the air. It's kind of neat. Now what's neat also is that this plane slows way down. So I can do like touch and goes really easily, even on a day like today when there's a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind. That is more wind than any of you guys that are beginners should start out flying in. If you go out on your first day to fly your first RC airplane, it's really important that you pick really good weather. A sunny day, under 10 mile an hour wind. The more wind you have, the more challenging it's going to be. And on your first takeoff, guys, take off head into the wind, nose into the wind down the runway. Hopefully you have a down the runway wind, not a crosswind. Crosswind will make it more difficult to land and take off. One thing to think about. But I'm happy that this plane can handle even an extreme amount of wind, and it's quite fast if I want it to be. I didn't do any barrel rolls or flips today because honestly I had my 360 camera just VHB sticky taped to the top of the wing without even a zip tie. So I'm just cruising around and hoping that camera stays up there for you guys and myself, so I don't have to go looking for it. But very stable, really nice turns, and wow, look at that. Mount Hood is off in the distance right there. That's an 11,000 foot mountain right there. One of the tallest mountains on the west coast of the United States. But a great trainer, very predictable, and you can slow it way down. And I'll show you a nice slow landing here in a minute. But right here, I'm nosed into the winds, and it's a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind. I'm almost getting zero airspeed right there, kind of crabbing into the wind, a little bit sideways, as you can see. Really nice. This plane does extremely well in the wind with the use of the rudder to give you those stable, flat turns. And here I'm coming in a little bit off angle to the runway because it is kind of coming across the runway a little bit like that, but I was able to make it on the runway. And now let's check out that steerable nose wheel and see how that works. And I want to see if I have the power to get across the grass. They recently mowed the grass, so I'm able to make it all the way across with that extra weight of the camera on top. So pretty cool. I love this plane. So let's give some final thoughts about the AeroScout. All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test. We're gonna do a little after flight report now, and I'm just gonna give you my opinion about some of the things that I really like about this plane, maybe some of the things that they could improve on the version 2. I'm sure there's gonna be a version 2 of this coming out. I'm sure there will be an AeroScout 2 and an ES2. One thing that I did notice on the Banggood website, if you buy it from Banggood, at the link down below, on the Banggood website over here on my computer, it actually says Esky Eagles. So if you're trying to do a search for that, or you click my link and it comes up, don't worry that it doesn't say ES. For some reason, on the eSky website, it says ES, but Banggood has decided to call it the Eagles, but it's actually the ES. I don't know, sometimes the Banggood description can be wrong, or they name things the way they want to name them. I don't know why. But I think that if you want to add anything on this airframe, it is super versatile. You can add FPV on it. You could actually put all of your FPV stuff up inside this canopy because you have all this extra space here, and you have a vent hole in the front, which you could actually mod to put your FPV camera in, and then you wouldn't see any of the front of the aircraft. I actually prefer to see a little bit of the front of a fixed wing when I'm flying it because it kind of gives me a good perspective where my nose is pointed, and I kind of like to see that view. I usually angle my camera a little bit down, just a few degrees down, maybe 10 degrees down instead of up like with quads. How we usually do 15 to 30% up on quads, but with this a little bit down angle, it lets you see a nice perspective in front of the plane, and it lets you see the ground down below you. So that's kind of a big thing with fixed wing FPV. But CADX Vista, it's great because I powered it straight from the battery lead right here. And this is cool because I have my XT30 right here, and I can take this on and off when I decide I just want to fly this line of sight. I can do it digital FPV, or I can fly it line of sight at any time. So if it's a little too windy to be flying FPV, I can always take this off. The day that I flew this, it was one of those days where nobody comes out to the field, and we had one other group of guys show up. A guy and his son flew their Beaver around, and I was able to do some chase with them. That was fun, but I think that the characteristics of this plane for small space flying, this is great. This is the perfect park flyer size plane, and with the extra weight on there, I had problems taking off in the grass, but without a GoPro on there, you probably wouldn't have to hand toss it. You can take off the grass. Now, hand toss wise, I didn't, once I put this plane up and I had my surfaces leveled on the radio, this is another good thing about this plane, is that I didn't have to do any trim. Once I tossed it the first time, it went straight up at about, I guess about 60% throttle on the launch. So if you hand launch it, throw it up about 60% and it'll just climb right up. It was really amazing. Even with the 360 camera on there, it took right off. I also think that it's a very interesting design because everything kind of is able to come on and off super easy. So for transport, you can pull this carbon spar out, and this whole elevator moves with the servo that's controlling this back elevator, which is kind of interesting. But I usually put them all the way kind of a little bit close to the vertical stabilizer there, not touching, so that it has a little bit of movement, freedom for movement. And you can see on the top here, it actually says up, so you'll put these on actually a certain way. And the servos on the wings are pre-installed, which is also great. The landing gear is probably my most impressive feature about the Eagle or the EOS or the AeroScout, whatever you want to call it. You can push in here with a screwdriver and you can take these on and off, and they are solid metal and they mount to metal, which is also really nice. So it's a really solid tricycle landing gear. The Cessna that I flew on the channel last week, when I landed, they were glued into foam and a piece of plywood, but there wasn't extra reinforcement for them. So they just popped right off on the first landing. So I'd say the landing gear is top quality on here. You probably won't have a problem unless you have a real hard crash with any of this landing gear. And the front wheel right here is super extra durable. A really thick piece of sort of steel up front for this steerable nose wheel. Really, really nice. And again, you have a flat wing profile on here. So it does have quite a bit of speed. If you're one of those guys that wants to fly fast, you can slow this plane way down for the pusher characteristic of the plane, but you can also get some high speed passes as well with this flat wing. It has just the slightest amount of dehedral on here. So it also glides really well. And a little bit of headwind, you can kill the throttle and this baby will almost turn into a glider. You have plenty of up angle on your elevator back here as well to keep the nose up if you need to. So I think that it's absolutely worth the money, and for $130, this one is gonna stay in my collection. This is one of the planes that I'm not gonna get rid of because it's just great, it's versatile, and you can almost land it anywhere. I flew it out at my friend's farm and I just landed it in some knee-high grass, just came really slow and plopped it down. So performance, flight time was great. The components on here are great for something coming out of China. And also it's a little bit cheaper than the AeroScout. So either way, if you like the stickers on the AeroScout and you want stabilizer and all that stuff, if you don't need the stabilizer, get this version and don't worry about AS3X on there. But you have a lot of options with it, and that's why I like it. I think this is probably going to be the most popular plane of 2020. Probably the best seller out there of any RC airplane. And I would almost guarantee that for Horizon Hobby and for eSky. So either way you decide to go, you're gonna love this plane. I absolutely love it, and all the guys at my club love it. They already are all buying it or want to buy it. So thanks again for watching my channel, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Take care, be well, and stay safe during this COVID thing. And as always, happy FPV and happy RC flying and crawling if you're doing some 4x4. Guys, I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.